Well, here we are, part 3 of our Darling River Run series as we travel along one of the country's best outback road trips. We started up in Brewarrina and have been making our way downstream, learning about the ancient Indigenous history of the river and the early European pastoralists who followed it. Along the way, we've stayed at some remarkable stations, first at ROUGHEST and then at Dunlop, where we uncovered a world-first story and a surprising personal connection. But outback travel has a way of throwing up some curveballs. Holy fuck. Now we're sadly leaving Dunlop behind and we're back on the road and are continuing our run down the Darling. Right now we're travelling along the western bank, heading toward the tiny township of Tilpa. It's one of the smallest communities on the river, but it's got plenty of character waiting for us when we arrive.
We're also passing Trilby Station, which was closed during our run, but you can also stay there and we've heard nothing but great things about it, so it's definitely one to add to your list if you're planning this trip yourself.
Tilpa is one of the tiniest townships on the entire Darling, and blink and you'll miss it doesn't even begin to describe it. A pub, a handful of buildings, a river crossing, and a whole lot of character. The Tilpa Hotel, it's calling my name. And in what's becoming a little bit of a pattern on this trip, somehow we managed to time our arrival perfectly with lunchtime.
Inside, the walls are covered in signatures, messages and stories from travellers who have passed through over the years. It's the kind of place where you can order a meal, sit back with a cold drink and feel like you've stepped into a living piece of outback history.
The pub's been serving river people, drovers and travellers for well over a century, and it's still the beating heart of the town.
So we just wrote our names on the wall. It was a big challenge finding space, considering that the walls are covered in it.
How much was it?
$5.
And what's $5 for?
The money goes to the Royal Flying Doctors.
That's pretty special, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think this is mine.
Yeah, that's you.
And the nuggets must still be coming.
Yeah. Good burger, mate.
Yep. How can I put tomato sauce on these two?
What is it?
Vanilla with strawberry sauce.
Vanilla?
Strawberry sauce.
Say vanilla again?
Vanilla.
Looks alright, eh? What did you get for me?
We didn't know you wanted one.
You can get one with that extra $10.
Oh, thank you. My own $10. Enjoying lunch on the riverbank, which has been a lifeline for communities up and down the Darling for centuries, is absolutely awesome. It's a small place, but like so many stops along this run, it's going to leave a bigger impression than you expect. And it's not just the meal that makes it a highlight.
After lunch, we roll back out of Tilpa and continue crisscrossing the Darling, just as we've been doing all the way down this run. We head across the old timber and steel bridge, one of the classic river crossings on this route, and turn south towards Wilcannia. Travel with caution, darling. I have a feeling it's always said to caution.
I think caution's as good as it gets. Yeah. Look at the birds up here on this roadkill.
Big wedgies too. Yeah. just made a lip
Harrison's
noise.
licking his lips. He enjoyed that burger.
Almost immediately the landscape opens up and this stretch of the run turns out to be an emu hotspot. Now we've seen the odd emu here and there over the past few days, but out here they are everywhere. Big mobs moving through the scrub, darting across the road.
You can run the pants off a kangaroo.
And even groups of adults shepherding long lines of chicks. It makes the outback feel very much alive, and it reminds you just how much life that the Darling supports. But it also throws up a couple of issues with a new game we've been trialling to keep the kids entertained and looking out the windows.
No, we're not all making rules. The rules are already established. There is one $5 prize on offer each day for the person who sees the first emu. After that, emu spottings are just bonus and free. There's no prizes. And if you just spot the same emu I've already seen and try and claim it as the $5 emu, that doesn't work either. I already saw it first. I said, look, there's an emu. Mum then saw the emu as well. And then 5 minutes later, James came to the party and announced that he saw an emu. That doesn't count, James.
Yeah.
No, it's not how the game works.
I said $5 you did it.
Alright. You don't have to name the emu $5 emu for it to be the $5 emu.
That was Mom's food.
Yeah, well, Mum shouldn't make rules.
Okay.
There's 2 more emus out there. They're not worth $5.
Okay. Let's just start on the count of 3 then.
No,
No, I've already won, and I want my $5.
I won.
No, James. No. All right, a little while ago, we installed a brand new charger into the car. So this is the Bluetti Charger 2. This has only just been released onto the Australian market this year. And if anyone's ever tried to use a portable power station like the ones that we love, like a Bluetti, we're using the Elite 100 V2 at the moment, you'd know that one of the major limitations to them is the DC charge rate. So when you're trying to charge it off a cigarette lighter socket or something like that, they charge really well off solar and they charge really well off AC. But for a lot of us, we want to be able to utilize them as a dual battery system. This Charger 2 allows you to do exactly that. This now connects to the start battery, or essentially your alternator charge, and is going to provide charge to your portable power station. It'll provide up to 800 watts of charge directly from your alternator, or you can also now install a solar panel as well and put solar charge into it. It'll combine both your vehicle alternator charge and your solar when you're driving and provide up to 1200 watts of charging, or 100 amps of charge at 12 volt, which is a pretty staggering charge rate. It'll also then still utilize that solar panel to continue that charge when you're no longer driving. But it's not just Bluetti power stations. You can charge almost any power station with this same Bluetti charger. The Bluetti Charger 2 comes as a complete kit, so it makes it heaps easier to install. You get all the cabling you need, including this fully sheathed 5-metre power lead to run back to your crank battery. But the real win, especially if you're thinking about a DIY install, is that every cable is already pre-terminated with the correct connectors. Poor connections are the #1 cause of electrical issues in touring setups, so having everything ready to go straight out of the box takes a lot of the risk out of the job. It's essentially a plug-and-play installation. Once it's in, you can jump into the Bluetti app to check for firmware updates and see exactly what the charger's doing in real time, how much power is coming in, where it's coming from, and how much is being consumed and by what. The only thing I'd look at changing is the supplied fuse. It works fine, but it's not a common type you're going to find in most stores, and that could be a problem if you're traveling remotely. And one of the other downsides to power stations like this one is that all the outlets are on the front or on the unit itself, which depending on your setup might not suit exactly the way you want to use it. So with the Charger 2, you can now pair it up to the Bluetti DC hub. Now this basically gives you a whole nother set of outlets. You've got twin cigarette lighter outputs, twin USB A's, twin USB C's, and critically a 50 amp Anderson output. Well, I know a lot of you guys have been really keen to get a 50 amp Anderson output on these power stations. Now it comes with a clip on the back. That'll suit some setups. If you don't want that, you can unscrew that, and in behind there are mounting points so you can screw it up into a ute canopy or something like that. I think this would be perfect. DIY camper trailer build, anything like that. I'm sure there's a bunch of different ways you could use it, and really handy to have a whole nother set of outputs away from your portable power station. So if you're like us and you've been thinking a portable power station could be the perfect solution in place of a dual battery system in your setup, jump over now, because until February 7 they've got special launch pricing on the Charger 2, and they've also given you guys an extra 6% 10% off if you use our code. It's in the description below. And leave us a comment below as well and let us know, is the Charger 2 going to change the game for you? And are you now going to look at a portable power station in place of your dual battery setup?
Right, so last night we pulled into the Peru Darling National Park, and this is the Coach and Horse campsite. I think I've got that right. This campsite's pretty new in the sense that it got washed out in the recent floods and they've redone it. So the reviews on Wikicamps are pretty good. It's got new toilets, new picnic areas, water tanks here. It's $20 a night, something like that for a family of 4. The station stays are nicer if you had to pick. There's definitely more weeds here than we've seen on any of the farm stays, especially up to the riverbank. It's such a shame to see that national parks don't have the resources at the moment, I think, to keep on top of the weeds. Great for an overnighter, especially if you need toilets. We're going to keep heading on today. We are going through Wilcannia. It's fuel and water. It was 50 cents a litre cheaper on Fuel Map to get fuel in Wilcannia than it was in Tilpa. So hopefully that pays off. It is a Sunday. Could be, you know, we could be sweet out of luck Sundays in country towns. So we'll see what we can find.
And to get the prize, the emu sighting has to be verified by at least one other person in the car. I don't want any false emu spottings being declared.
I love emus.
Funny birds, aren't they? How cool's the red sand dunes?
The sheep count.
Sheep do not count.
How's your audio book?
Good.
Good?
I nearly finished book 4.
Nearly finished book 4.
Yeah.
Whoa! So good.
It's a thick.
Tar, darling.
Yeah.
Wilcannia sits on a big bend in the Darling, and as we cross the bridge, we get a glimpse of the old sandstone buildings that hint to its past as a major river port. These days, it's a far quieter place, but the history is everywhere in the streets. We roll through town and make a quick stop to refuel. It's one of the cheaper places to fuel up along the journey.
So that bridge we came across was actually the first bridge built across the Darling River between Burke and Wentworth back in 1892. Before that, the only way to get across the river was punts or little ferries, and that's how they got all stock and supplies and everything across the river. Large mobs though, they actually swam them across before the bridge was put in. So that would have been a bit of a sight to see. So they had a trained bullock that would lead the mob and swim across the river, and the mob would follow them. So the bridge there is a pretty traditional design for a lot of the bridges that went across the Darling and the Murray, in that it's a truss style bridge with that centre lift up section, pylons sunk into the river floor. Obviously the lift up there for the bigger paddle steamers and things to get through. And it's actually one of the last remaining of that style of bridge still standing in any of those river systems. So that's pretty cool. The first and one of the last. Yeah, that means we're now going to head down this side of the river. We're on our way to go down to do another station stay. Pulling in for a bit of lunch. It's a great little spot. You can camp here as well, just on the edge of the river. The river looks very different here though, like it's more in the floodplain, sort of the banks aren't as steep. And you can just swing the camera around, there's emus before they take off. There's emus down there having a drink. Gee, we've seen some emus.
I think because of the floods, like 8 months ago, there's all this grass, so they're breeding.
And it's spring.
And it's springtime. Yeah, I think there's a lot of feed on the ground for them. I think because kangaroos are like that. They'll hold an embryo in stasis until it's a good time to breed.
I was just having a look on the Google satellite. This isn't actually the river. This is a billabong off the side of the river. The river's a little bit further behind it, but That maybe is why it looks a little bit different, but this is a beautiful little spot. This would make a cracking campsite if you just wanted to do a free camp. We're going to go a little bit further. We're just going to have a quick bite to lunch and yeah, have a quick break out of the car. We're only about 45 minutes from the station now. But yeah, the road is very varied. There's some really nice sections and then there's some absolute crap. Just some really rough bits, big holes and stuff. So yeah, pretty slow progress, but not too far to go now. This is such a nice spot.
So handy having Starlink on the car permanently mounted and then wiki camps. Like Simon just said, I'm a bit peckish and I was like, oh, well, let's see, like we're still 50 minutes from camp. You open wiki camps, you have a look, there's a campsite, navigate to it, straight to it, and you can see what it looks like. Bloody brilliant.
Who are you waving to?
I'm waving, there's so many flies.
A great little lunch stop. I tell you what, we were just reminiscing the other day about how good it is. It's one of the best things about traveling with a caravan. I still remember right back to when we got our very first van, our first ever road trip, pulled up at just a crappy old rest area off the side of the Pacific motorway, went inside and just lay on the bed, had a bit of a rest, had a bite to eat, just in your own cozy environment. And even here today, like you get out of the flies, out of the heat, and just have somewhere comfy to sit and have lunch. It's just still to this day is one of my favourite things about travelling with a caravan. There's a lot of downsides, but that is one of my favourite things about travelling with a caravan. And then I forgot to level up the airbag, so I just got to go do that. Oh, I can just do it with the app in my pocket. Just do it the easy way. That's disgusting. Yucky.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, wow. All right. The road's been in pretty good nick apart from this section between Wilcannia and, what's this station called? I don't know.
I'm not even trying to guess.
Yeah. Between Wilcannia and this side. South of Wilcannia is terrible. You notice it when you get out of the car. That's like hot sand in your eyes. That's
Perfect.
fun. That's fun. Let's go. After one of the roughest stretches of road we've hit on the entire Darling River run, rolling into the long driveway at Nilagiri feels like a relief. The corrugations are behind us and it feels like we can finally relax. But of course, the road is only half the story. We haven't seen inside the caravan yet. We've done enough outback kilometres to know that sometimes surprises are waiting for you when you open the door.
We've lost the sink.
The whole sink's come out.
Holy fuck.
Have some look.
Did that door come open as well?
That was definitely latched before we left. I don't even know where the sink is.
In there, that's why it's fucking knocked that open.
Whoa.
Holy. Oh my god. That window's come off as well.
Yeah. We've lost the sink, so the full mount, like fully moulded sink has dropped down. It has launched this cupboard door open and has pushed our bins out onto the ground and the stuff that was in the sink. I'm just going to go around now and just tidy up and then see what we're dealing with.
I think it's time for me to go